All mythology is true, in the most literal sense of the word. I repeat, all myth, all lore, all legend, all epic hero quests are true. You are Jason now hunting for the Golden Fleece, you are the superhero of comics, you are now all of the epic heroes of fiction and lore, you are in, and a part of, the most epic adventures, you are now partaking in the most incredible quests possible. This is all happening inside of you, it is your inner reality, and it is all happening at this moment point. There is true magic inside you, even in this supposedly awake time, the average and daylight time, even during this time, your dreams never end, and it is this dream reality that is the real you. In writing my third book in the magnum opus trilogy, I find myself at times divergent in my thoughts, having a great desire to express certain ideas and ideals about the world. So full of this bubbling energy in fact, that I must speak and express, or else possibly perish from the wave of energy and information that I have caught onto on my silver board. Being limited in many ways by words, I often contemplate these tensions, this expansion of power, and how these energies can and do, as they do now, project my consciousness into other realms, and in doing so, how if I write these words down, speak these words in the best possible manner, they may also take the reader, the listener, you personally, into these tangents with me. It is my hope that in these projections of consciousness, in the push from these waves from infinity, we may ride together to the very edge of the unknown, and ride those expansive realities beyond current boundaries, discovering incredible possibilities together. One such possibility, one such tangent that I have stumbled across at this moment point, as these tides from the dark sea grab hold of me, at this very moment as I write this, is the hidden knowing that every single myth on earth is a reality now, it exists now, it is all real and all-encompassing now. That you are quite simply a hero in those myths that aren't myths at all, and that indeed such myth, such tall tales of supposed fantasy, are not just real and alive now, but that they are more real, more alive than this modern materialistic conception of reality could ever be. Anyone or anything that tells you that myth is fiction, that it does not exist, that it is delusion of the mind, or some invention of some fiction writer, someone with too much imagination, is simply wrong. All mythology is real and it exists now, because all such internal movement, all such dreams, all such worlds that seem to be only of the mind when we are physically alive and caught in a skeptic worldview, are in essence real. These myths, this inner supposed fiction, have a place, they have a location and a time where they do exist, where they are real, and that reality makes this modern version of objective form pale in comparison. The great adventurer, the hero of the time, quests across endless realms of danger and wonder as they seek some hidden treasure or truth. In that seeking they face monsters of unimaginable horror, and adventures and excitement beyond all possible description, because indeed the only possible way to really know such adventures, such excitement, such expansive realness and power, is to experience them for yourself, to experience them bodily for yourself. And the sad part, the saddest thing, is that humanity has lost for the most part the ability to see these mythic worlds, and to see themselves in these worlds, interacting with the magical beasts, the enchanted and the enchanting energies at the foundation of all existence. Humanity now is for the most part lost, stuck in a world of static objects, measured weights, and binding walls. What an illusion! How sad that they do not know, hardly suspect, that the dignity in their step, in every person's courage to move forward across the timeline of their lives, comes from a source, and a real life that is far richer and far more exciting than any sword and sorcery novel. And so, we read books, or we may play some game or watch a movie, and think to ourselves that this is a wonderful adventure, what a life. If only I could. But this is as far as they will go, and so we therefore engage in trying to make these epic, supposedly fictional, adventures as real as possible, by either creating better and better fiction, or trying to redefine these old myths in greater and greater detail from different aspects and nuances, so that we may bask in them in this shallow world. But what we fail to see, what we always fail to see because in many ways it is hidden from us, because it is consciously and actively hidden from us, is that these myths are real, and we are participating in them now at this very moment. and we can actually engage in them to a far greater degree than we are currently, only if we realize that the inner self is as valid as the outer objective and physical us, that there is validity in going in and getting to know this inner self, this inner reality, and that actually and in many ways, this inner reality is far more valid than the outer self, the physical self, and the many boundaries that this supposedly objective self must endure. This is not to say that the physical self is less than the inner self. It is instead the case that the physical self has come under great limitation by outside sources, and for that reason it finds itself trapped within a three-dimensional cube that binds it. But the inner self is still free to a much greater extent. It is still not controlled by those same forces that now trap the physical world in the many belief structures of the times. And it is therefore the inner self that must be sought. It is the inner self where all action must take place. And it is in this place that you will find the great myths of old, the great adventures of old lore, the old gods and the new, and the epic struggles, the heroic quests of warriors, fighters, the great adventures of past epics and of present fiction. But how do you participate in these great adventures? How do you uncover the epic realms just beyond the grasp of the material world? Well, you start by realizing that these adventures are real now, and that these epic realms are, and will always be, part of your heritage. You begin by realizing that from the moment that you start taking conscious stock of what goes on in your mind, at every moment of every day, that this inner world will begin to open up to you. And at that moment you will see and feel and experience the gigantic world inside you, a colossal world of strange power that has up to that point been hidden from you. Quite literally, as I have mentioned in many of my books, you are far bigger on the inside than you are on the outside. Once you can realize this, and you begin to pay attention to the inner self, to the inner thoughts that you have every day, to the impulses, to the emotions, to the great thrusts that send your attention hurtling this way and that way, you will begin to see that there is an inner space. And this inner space is epic in its proportions as there is no end to it. Further, you will realize that within this inner space there is other life, other reality, other existence that allows for interrelations of the most subtle kinds, and that once these inner projections of attention, focused and sustained, will in time move you into these zones with such an integrity, with such a feeling of being physically real, from your perspective as a human being, that for all intents and purposes at that moment you'll finally realize that the world is not just this physical place, and that the things inside your mind are not just silliness and delusion, but that indeed there are no separations between what might be termed the physical world by those that would like to trap you within it, and the infinite glory to be found within each and every one of us. We are the doorway to worlds beyond imagination, to adventures, and to epic vistas that can drive the unworthy hero mad, if such a hero does not heed the way of heroic action, and the way of the heroic nature, and the dignity inside all of us. There are ways and ways, and I have written about the ways of inner alchemy, and how it is that such alchemists, as projectionists, enter into such other worlds. If you would like to know more about this, then I would recommend the magnum opus course books, specifically the book, The Way of the Projectionist. While this might be a more advanced text for some, I do feel that many will benefit from the many techniques that inner alchemy uses to find the epic dimensions inside all of us.